In July 1936, a document left the Air Ministry's Operational Requirements section in London and entered the British aviation industry. It was called Specification B.12/36, and it asked for something Britain had never built, a four-engine strategic heavy bomber. The requirements were staggering: 14,000 pounds of bombs to a range of 2,000 miles, 8,000 pounds to 3,000 miles, a cruising speed of 230 miles per hour at 15,000 feet, 3 gun turrets, a crew of 6, and, for reasons that already seemed eccentric, the ability to carry 24 fully armed soldiers. But buried in the technical language sat one sentence that would define the fate of the aircraft, its designer, and the thousands of men who would fly it. The specification stated that the bomber should not exceed a span of 100 feet. The man who received this document was Arthur Gouge, chief designer of Short Brothers, the oldest aircraft manufacturer in the world. Gouge had already drawn the wing. It came from his masterpiece, the Sunderland flying boat, and it spanned 112 feet. It was proven. It was aerodynamically sound, and it would have given the bomber a service ceiling above 20,000 feet. The Air Ministry told him to cut it. Shorts proposed 102 feet as the minimum workable span. The Ministry refused. 99 feet and 1 inch. That was what they got. The consequences were catastrophic. The short Stirling, Britain's first four-engine heavy bomber, entered service with a ceiling of roughly 17,000 feet. The Lancaster that replaced it cruised at 24,500. At operational weights, Stirlings frequently flew at 12 to 15,000 feet, squarely inside the lethal belt of medium-caliber flak that could not touch aircraft above 20,000. On the night of the 23rd of August, 1943, Stirlings over Berlin suffered a loss rate of 12.9%, more than double the Lancaster's 5.4. 1 week later, losses hit 16%, 1 in 6 aircraft failing to return. Between 2,700 and 3,500 aircrew are estimated to have perished in Stirlings. And the supreme irony that the Lancaster that made the Stirling obsolete was itself born from a failed twin-engine design. But the Lancaster was never shackled by a 100-foot wingspan limit. It was given 102 feet, 3 feet of difference, 7,500 feet of ceiling, and a world of difference between life and death over Germany. Arthur Gouge was born on the 3rd of July 1890 in Northfleet, Kent, a Thameside industrial town thick with cement dust and barge traffic. His father George was a Methodist preacher from Sittingbourne. His mother Elizabeth came from Chatham. The household was modest, religious, and firmly working class. Gouge attended a Church of England school and Gravesend Technical School, but formal education held no appeal. At 13, he left the classroom for good and took a carpentry apprenticeship with a local building firm. The workshop suited him in ways the school never had. He was good with his hands, precise, patient, obsessive about the grain of the wood and the trueness of a joint. While serving his apprenticeship by day, he enrolled in night classes in engineering and mathematics. Over the next several years, studying entirely in his own time, he earned a Bachelor of Science degree from Woolwich Polytechnic, a qualification formally conferred in 1922. A teenage carpenter with no secondary education had taught himself into a university degree. In 1915, aged 25, Gouge walked into the Rochester works of Short Brothers and asked for a job. He was hired as an ordinary hand in the carpentry section. It was not a glamorous start, but it was the right door. Short Brothers was, and claimed to be, the oldest aircraft manufacturing company in the world. The firm had been founded in November 1908 by three brothers from County Durham, Horace, Eustace, and Oswald Short. Their father Samuel had been a mining engineer who served his apprenticeship with Robert Stevenson and Company in Newcastle. The brothers had started in ballooning in 1897, but when Aero Club members described the Wright brothers' demonstrations at Le Mans in 1908, Oswald declared that ballooning was finished and they must build aeroplanes at once. In early 1909, they signed a license agreement with the Wright brothers to manufacture copies of the Wright Flyer, the first company in the world to undertake volume production of powered aircraft. 6 were ordered immediately. By the time Gouge arrived, Shorts had become specialists in seaplanes and flying boats. Their short type 184 had made history on the 15th of August 1915, when Flight Commander Charles Edmonds, flying from HMS Ben My Cree, became the first pilot in history to sink an enemy ship with an air-launched torpedo during the Gallipoli campaign. Over 900 were produced. Horace Short died of a brain hemorrhage in April 1917, aged 44. Eustace died in 1932. Oswald remained. Gouge rose quietly and steadily. By the early 20s, he had transferred to the test department, where Shorts had commissioned a 350-foot water testing tank at Rochester in 1924, believed to be the first tank built exclusively for flying boat hull design. Gouge and fellow engineer Oscar Nospelius designed the travelling carriage that pushed scale hull models through the water at measured speeds. In the early days, Gouge carved the mahogany test hulls himself, by hand, shaping wood, testing it, measuring the results, reshaping. The method was empirical, physical, repetitive. It was also the foundation of everything he would build. In 1926, chief designer Francis Weber resigned in a dispute over hull geometry. Oswald Short looked around his company and chose Gouge, 36 years old, no university degree at the time of appointment, elevated entirely on the evidence of what his hands and his mind had produced. Over the next 17 years, every aircraft that left Short Brothers carried his signature. The Singapore, the Calcutta, the Kent, the Sarafand, the Short Mayo Composite, an audacious piggyback arrangement where a small mail plane launched from the back of a larger carrier aircraft, completing the first heavier-than-air commercial North Atlantic crossing on the 20th of July 1938, flying 2,930 miles from Foynes to Montreal in 20 hours and 20 minutes. His masterpiece before the Stirling was the Short S-23 Empire flying boat, first flown on the 4th of July 1936. Gouge made a revolutionary leap from biplane to monoplane configuration, and for this aircraft he invented a device that still bears his name, the Gouge flap. It was a sharp-nosed aerofoil section that moved rearward and downward on a curved track, simultaneously increasing wing area and chord, adding approximately 30% more lift for landing. 41 Empire boats were built. They became the backbone of Imperial Airways' long-range network. The military derivative, the Short Sunderland, first flown in October 1937, would serve throughout the coming war as one of the finest patrol aircraft ever built. Recognition followed at a pace unusual for a man without connections. The Royal Aeronautical Society awarded Gouge its British Gold Medal for Aeronautics in 1937, the Society's highest honour. That same year he was made a Freeman of the City of Rochester. By 1935, when Short Brothers went public, only 2 directors existed, Oswald Short and Arthur Gouge. The carpenter's apprentice from Northfleet now stood beside the last surviving founder of the world's oldest aircraft company. When Specification B.12/36 went out to the industry in mid-1936, Short Brothers were not on the original distribution list. The document went first to Supermarine, Bolton Paul, Handley Page, and Armstrong Whitworth. Shorts were added later, almost as an afterthought, because they happened to have a suitable design already in progress and available drawing office capacity. The establishment did not naturally think of a flying boat company when it wanted a land-based bomber. At least 6 firms submitted proposals. Vickers offered a geodetic design, ranked first at the October 1936 Tender Design Conference. Bolton Paul came second with a 4-orchestral layout. Armstrong Whitworth placed third with a Whitley derivative. And then there was Supermarine, where R.J. Mitchell himself, the man who had drawn the Spitfire, submitted the Type 316 with an innovative wing bomb stowage system and a projected ceiling of roughly 30,000 feet. Shorts ranked last. But competitions shift. Mitchell redesigned his entry as the Type 317, a complete revision with Bristol Hercules engines, a larger 97-foot wing, a twin-tail configuration, and his signature elliptical wing plan form. 2 prototypes were ordered on the 22nd of March 1937. Had the Type 317 entered service, the Stirling might never have been needed. On the 26th of September 1940, the Luftwaffe bombed the Supermarine works at Woolston, destroying both unfinished prototypes and their construction jigs. The order was formally cancelled in November 1940. The best bomber Britain might have had was reduced to scrap metal before it ever flew. That left Gouge, and Gouge had a problem he could not solve by engineering alone. His original S.29 design used the Sunderland's 112-foot wing, the natural starting point for a land-based derivative of his flying boat. The wing was proven. Its aerodynamics were understood. It would have given the bomber the altitude performance it needed. When the Air Ministry told him to reduce the span, Shorts submitted a revised design at 102 feet, which the company considered the shortest workable wingspan for an aircraft of this size and weight. The Air Ministry came back with a single word. No, 100 feet was the absolute maximum. Shorts cut it again, 99 feet and 1 inch. The popular story, repeated in aviation book after aviation book, holds that the restriction existed to fit the bomber into standard RAF hangar doors. The truth is more interesting and more damning. The specification itself never mentions hangars, not once. The standard Type C bomber hangar, designed in 1934, was 150 feet wide, with a clear door opening of 126 feet. More than enough for a 112-foot wing. Even the older A-type sheds had 120-foot openings. The portable Bellman hangar, sometimes blamed, had a clear width of just 87 feet 9 inches. Too narrow for the Stirling regardless of its wingspan. And the specification itself required the aircraft to be serviceable outdoors. So why 100 feet? The real reasons were a cocktail of bureaucratic caution, controlling overall size and weight, ensuring the aircraft could operate from grass airfields without paved runways, structural limits related to a 2.5 G catapult launch requirement that was later quietly dropped, and the simple institutional fact that 100 feet seemed enormous in 1936, when the in-service Hayford heavy bomber had a wingspan of just 75 feet. The men who wrote the specification could not imagine the war that was coming, or the altitudes at which it would be fought. We covered the Rolls-Royce Merlin in our film about the engine that made the Spitfire unstoppable. The Lancaster carried 4 of them. The bomber it replaced was never given that advantage, and the restriction that crippled it began here, in this specification, with this single arbitrary number. Gouge did what any good engineer does when handed a constraint he cannot change. He worked around it. His first step was characteristically methodical: build a half-scale flying model and test everything before committing to the full aircraft. The short S.31 was constructed at Rochester at the company's own expense in 1938. It was mostly wooden, powered by 4 tiny Pobjoy Niagara, 3 engines of just 90 horsepower each, with a wingspan of 50 feet 6 inches and a crew of 2. Chief Test Pilot John Lancaster Parker flew it for the first time on the 19th of September 1938. It was delivered to the Aeroplane and Armament Experimental Establishment at Martlesham Heath on the 21st of October and received mostly favourable reviews, except for one critical finding. The takeoff run was far too long. The problem traced directly back to the specification cascade. The shortened, thickened wing had been set at a low angle of incidence to minimize drag in cruise. On the ground, this gave the wing insufficient angle of attack for takeoff. Redesigning the wing incidence would have meant the aircraft flying nose down in cruise, impractical with production drawings already advanced. Short's solution was to lengthen the main undercarriage struts, tilting the entire aircraft nose up on the ground to give the wing roughly 3 additional degrees of angle of attack. It worked, but it gave the Stirling its characteristic towering, spindly landing gear, a source of mechanical failures that would plague the aircraft throughout its career. The full-scale prototype, serial L7600, made its maiden flight on the 14th of May, 1939 from Rochester Airport, piloted by Lancaster Parker. The flight lasted approximately 80 minutes, and handling was satisfactory. Then Parker brought it in to land. A brake locked on touchdown, slewing the aircraft violently off the runway. The undercarriage collapsed. L7600 was written off beyond repair. Parker reportedly kicked the wreckage and walked away swearing. The inadequate light alloy back arch braces had buckled under load. They were redesigned in stronger tubular steel. The second prototype flew on the 3rd of December 1939. Ironically, a future Air Chief Marshal had foreseen the entire farce. Arthur Harris, then in charge of plans at the Air Ministry, had written on the 6th of March 1934, 2 full years before B.12/36 was issued, that hangars were an unessential luxury, and that in wartime they would be the last place in which to keep aircraft. His own words would come back to haunt the Stirling and the men who flew it. The engineering chain that destroyed the Stirling ran in a merciless sequence, each link forged from the one before it. Short wingspan forced a thick wing section. Thick wing section demanded a low angle of incidence to reduce cruise drag. Low incidence meant insufficient lift on the ground for takeoff. Insufficient takeoff lift required absurdly tall undercarriage legs. Tall undercarriage added weight and drag, and the thick, short, high-drag wing could not carry the aircraft above the altitude where German gunners waited. Every compromise flowed from the first, the 100-foot limit, and every compromise made the next one worse. Start with the wing itself. The Stirling Mark III, the definitive bomber variant, had a wingspan of 99 feet 1 inch, stretched over a wing area of approximately 1,460 square feet. That gives an aspect ratio of roughly 6.7. Now compare the Lancaster, 102 feet of span over 1,297 square feet of wing area, aspect ratio approximately 8.0. The Halifax Mark III, 104 feet, 2 inches over 1,275 square feet, aspect ratio 8.5. The numbers tell you everything. The Stirling's wing was simultaneously shorter in span and larger in total area than either of its stablemates. Gouge had been forced to make the wing deeper and wider in chord to generate enough lift from a shorter span. The result was an aerofoil so thick that crew members could physically crawl inside it from the fuselage to reach fuel lines and control cables for in-flight repairs. Useful, certainly, but that thickness was an aerodynamic anchor. Think of it this way: a long, thin wing slices through the air cleanly. A short, fat wing shoves it aside. At low altitude, where the air is dense, the difference is manageable. At high altitude, where the air thins out, the short wing has to tilt to a steeper angle to generate the same lift, and the steeper angle creates exponentially more induced drag. The aircraft reaches a point where the engines cannot produce enough thrust to overcome the drag, and that is the ceiling. For the Stirling, that ceiling was approximately 17,000 feet. For the Lancaster, 24,500. A gap of 7,500 feet, and 7,500 feet was the difference between life and death over the Reich. 4 Bristol Hercules 16 sleeve valve radial engines powered the Stirling Mark III, each producing approximately 1,615 horsepower. These were superb engines, reliable, powerful, well liked by ground crews. The sleeve valve design ran smoother and quieter than conventional poppet valve radials, and it tolerated lower grade fuel without complaint. But the Hercules used single-stage superchargers, meaning power output dropped steadily as altitude increased. The Merlin engines fitted to later Lancasters had 2-stage superchargers that maintained power far better in thinner air. Yet engine power alone does not explain the disparity. Here is the fact that condemns the specification beyond any reasonable defense. The Halifax Mark III used the identical Bristol Hercules 16 engine as the Stirling Mark III. Identical, same manufacturer, same model, same horsepower rating. The Halifax reached 24,000 feet. The Stirling reached 17,000. The 7,000-foot difference was purely aerodynamic. The drag penalty of that shortened, thickened wing. The dimensions of the Stirling dwarfed everything else in bomber command. 87 feet 3 inches long. The Lancaster was just 69 feet 6 inches, 22 feet 9 inches tall. The tallest operational aircraft in the RAF, empty weight, 43,200 pounds, against the Lancaster's 36,828. That is over 6,000 pounds of additional structure, weight that produced nothing but drag and inertia. Maximum takeoff weight reached 70,000 pounds, partly because the now abandoned catapult launch stressing requirement had added structural mass throughout the airframe that could never be removed. Weight had crept from an anticipated 48,000 pounds normal loaded to over 70,000 maximum, nearly 50% above the original specification estimate. Every extra pound demanded more lift from a wing that was already struggling to provide it. Then there was the bomb bay. Running approximately 40 feet down the belly of the fuselage, it should have been the Stirling's greatest asset. Instead, it became its second fatal compromise. 2 longitudinal structural beams, integral to the airframe, carrying the loads of the center section spar booms, divided the bay into 3 parallel cells, each roughly 19 inches wide. When the Stirling was designed, the RAF's largest bomb was the 2,000-pound armor-piercing type, and 19 inches accommodated it adequately. Nobody in 1937 anticipated the weapons that were coming. As the war progressed, Bomber Command adopted the 4,000-pound high-capacity blast bomb, the Cookie, as its standard area weapon. The Cookie was 30 inches in diameter. It physically could not fit through a 19-inch opening. Removing the structural dividers was not an option. The beams carried primary airframe loads, and cutting them would have compromised the aircraft's structural integrity in flight. So the Stirling was locked into carrying a maximum single bomb of 2,000 pounds while the Lancaster's single unobstructed bay eventually accommodated weapons up to the 22,000-pound Grand Slam earthquake bomb. In terms of bombing efficiency, the gap was devastating. The Stirling delivered just 41 long tons of bombs per aircraft lost. The Lancaster delivered 132, more than 3 times the destructive output for every crew sacrificed. Defensive armament told its own grim story. 8.303 caliber Browning machine guns sat in 3 Fraser-Nash turrets, 2 guns in the nose, 2 in the dorsal position, and 4 in the tail. An early ventral turret, the FN-25, nicknamed the Dustbin, was a retractable ball turret mounted beneath the fuselage. In theory, it covered the blind spot below the aircraft. In practice, it snagged on the ground during taxiing, reduced airspeed by as much as 10 miles per hour when extended, and had a tendency to drop open without warning. It was removed from service almost immediately. This left the Stirling with no effective defense from below, precisely the angle from which German night fighters equipped with Schrager music upward-firing cannon would attack. A Junkers 88 or a Messerschmitt 110 would slide beneath the bomber, invisible against the dark ground, and fire vertically upward into the wing root fuel tanks. The Stirling crews never saw what ended them. Put the numbers side by side, and the verdict writes itself. Service ceiling: Stirling 17,000 feet, Lancaster 24,500, Halifax 24,000. Maximum speed: Stirling 270 miles per hour, Lancaster 282, Halifax 310. Largest single bomb: Stirling 2,000 pounds, Lancaster 22,000, Halifax 8,000. A 3-foot difference in wingspan between the Stirling and the Lancaster masked a world of difference in wing philosophy. The Lancaster's thinner, higher aspect ratio wing was never designed to B.12/36. It was free of the constraint, and that freedom translated into 7,500 feet of operational ceiling, feet that separated the concentrated flak belt from relative safety, feet that separated burning aircraft from aircraft that came home. The first production, Stirling, flew on the 7th of May, 1940 from Rochester. Deliveries began in August, with the first aircraft reaching number 7 Squadron at RAF Leaming in North Yorkshire on approximately the 3rd of August 1940. After a 4-month working up period, during which crews discovered that the towering undercarriage made violent ground loops on takeoff a regular hazard, requiring a special training and certification program for all Stirling pilots, the aircraft's baptism of fire came on the night of the 10th to 11th of February 1941. 3 Stirlings attacked oil storage tanks at Vlaardingen near Rotterdam, each carrying 16 500-pound bombs. All 3 returned safely. The RAF's first 4-engine monoplane bomber was operational. The first Stirling reached Berlin on the night of the 17th to 18th of April 1941, dropping 8,500 pounds of bombs. But early attrition was savage. Within 5 months of entering service, 67 out of 84 Stirling delivered had been lost to enemy action or written off after crashes. An 80% wastage rate. Replacement aircraft were arriving slower than they were being destroyed. The tall undercarriage was a constant menace. On landing, the aircraft had a tendency to suddenly stall and drop onto the runway like a stone, snapping undercarriage legs and crushing fuselage frames. Stirlings participated in all 3 of the legendary 1,000-bomber raids of 1942. 88 flew to Cologne on the 30th to 31st of May, 78 to Essen on the 1st to 2nd of June, 72 to Bremen on the 25th to 26th of June. At peak strength in mid-1943, 12 squadrons simultaneously operated Stirlings, primarily in No. 3 Group, Bomber Command. Number 7 Squadron had transferred to the elite Pathfinder force, making Stirlings among the founding aircraft of the Pathfinder concept, the crews that marked targets for the main bomber stream. The numbers that sealed the Stirling's fate emerged during the Battle of Berlin. On the night of the 23rd to 24th of August 1943, Bomber Command sent a mixed force of Lancasters, Halifaxes and Stirlings. The Lancaster loss rate was 5.4%, the Halifax 8.8%, the Stirling 12.9%. 1 week later, on the 30th to 31st of August, Stirling losses hit 16%, 1 in 6 aircraft failing to return. Bomber Command's Operational Research section studied raids between August and November and found Stirlings consistently suffering 10 to 15% losses per sortie. The last Stirling raid on Berlin came on the 22nd to 23rd of November 1943. Of 50 Stirlings committed, among 764 bombers total, 4 were lost. After that night, Stirlings were permanently withdrawn from Berlin operations. The reasons were brutally simple. Flying at 12 to 15,000 feet, while Lancasters and Halifaxes operated at 18 to 22,000, the Stirlings absorbed the concentrated attention of both flak batteries and night fighters. Higher flying bombers sometimes dropped their bombs through the Stirling formations below them. Lancaster crews developed a callous cheer at briefings when they heard Stirlings would be operating beneath them. The angular, low-flying bombers drew fire away from everyone else. Air Marshal Sir Arthur Harris was merciless in his assessment. He wrote to the Secretary of State for War that the Stirling Group had virtually collapsed and made no worthwhile contribution to the war effort in return for their overheads. Of Short Brothers, Harris was crueler still, calling Oswald Short an incompetent drunk and demanding a wholesale sacking of the people who had turned out what he claimed was 50% rogue aircraft from the Belfast and Longbridge factories. 2 Stirling pilots received the Victoria Cross, both posthumously, both on raids against targets in northern Italy. Flight Sergeant Rawdon Middleton of No. 149 Squadron was 26 years old and Australian. On the night of the 28th to 29th of November 1942, his Stirling was attacking the Fiat works at Turin when a shell burst in the cockpit. The blast destroyed his right eye and shattered his jaw. His second pilot was also badly wounded. Despite injuries that should have rendered him unconscious permanently, Middleton regained control of the aircraft, flew it 4 hours back across the Alps and occupied France, ordered 5 crew to bail out over the English coast, then steered the crippled bomber out to sea off Dymchurch to avoid crashing into populated areas. Middleton, his front gunner, and his flight engineer went into the channel with the aircraft. His body washed ashore on the 1st of February 1943. He was the first serving member of the Royal Australian Air Force to receive the Victoria Cross. Acting Flight Sergeant Arthur Aaron of No. 218 Squadron was 21. On the night of the 12th to 13th of August 1943, also over Turin, he was shot through the face. His jaw was broken and his right arm rendered useless. Unable to speak, he directed his bomb aimer to fly the aircraft to North Africa by writing instructions with his left hand on scraps of paper. They made 4 landing attempts at Bone Airfield in Algeria before the bomb aimer completed a 5th. Aaron perished of exhaustion 9 hours after landing. The last Stirling bombing sortie was flown by No. 149 Squadron against Le Havre on the 8th of September 1944. The aircraft's career as a frontline bomber had lasted barely 2.5 years, but the Stirling found a kind of redemption in the roles nobody had designed it for. As a glider, Tuggett excelled, particularly with the heavy Hamilcar glider carrying light tanks. On D-Day, Stirlings of numbers 190, 196, 299, and 622 squadrons towed Horsa gliders and dropped paratroopers of the 6th Airborne Division in Normandy. 6 Stirlings of No. 2 18 Squadron flew Operation Glimmer, a precision deception mission, dropping window chaff at exact intervals to simulate the radar signature of an invasion fleet approaching the Pas-de-Calais. So convincing was the Phantom fleet that German shore batteries opened fire on empty sea, and 2 panzer divisions were held in the Pas-de-Calais for at least 14 days after the real landings in Normandy. The same Ministry of Aircraft production we discussed in our film about Lord Beaverbrook would later seize Short Brothers from the man who had built its finest aircraft. But that reckoning belongs to the next chapter of this story. Over the entire war, Stirlings flew approximately 18,440 sorties, dropped 27,821 tons of bombs, and laid some 20,000 sea mines. 582 aircraft were lost in action. 119 more were written off from other causes. 701 Stirlings destroyed, roughly 30% of the approximately 2,371 produced. The aircraft that replaced the Stirling, the aircraft that became the symbol of Bomber Command's entire offensive, was itself born from failure. And it was never hobbled by the specification that had crippled Gouge's design. The Avro Manchester was built to a different document entirely. Specification P.13/36, issued in May 1936, calling for a twin-engine medium bomber capable of carrying 8,000 pounds of bombs and making shallow dive bombing attacks. P.13/36 contained no 100-foot wingspan restriction. The Manchester used 2 Rolls-Royce Vulture 24-cylinder engines, essentially 2 Peregrine V12s bolted together. That proved catastrophically unreliable. Connecting rods failed. Bearings disintegrated. Engines caught fire in flight. Only 200 Manchesters were built, and they were withdrawn after just 1,269 sorties. By mid-1940, Avro's chief designer, Roy Chadwick, was already working on a 4 Merlin variant. The Manchester 3 prototype, serial BT-308, first flew on the 9th of January 1941 and was immediately renamed Lancaster. It used approximately 75% of existing Manchester components, with the principal change being a new centre section carrying 4 Merlin engines on a wing of increased span, ultimately 102 feet, 2 feet beyond the limit that had strangled the Stirling. The irony cuts to the bone. The Lancaster was free to have a thinner, higher aspect ratio wing, precisely because it was never designed to B.12/36. It was a 4-engine modification of a twin-engine failure, built to a separate specification that imposed no wingspan constraint. The Stirling, the only British heavy bomber designed from the outset as a 4-engine aircraft, was the one crippled. Both the Halifax and the Lancaster evolved from twin-engine origins. Only Gouge's Stirling was purpose-built for 4 engines from the start, and only Gouge's Stirling was shackled. Short Brothers knew what an unconstrained design could achieve. They proposed the S.36 Super Stirling to specification B.8/41. 4 Bristol Centaurus engines, a wingspan of 135 feet, 9 inches, maximum takeoff weight of 104,000 pounds, a projected speed of 300 miles per hour, range of 4,000 miles, and a service ceiling of 29,300 feet, nearly double the production Stirling ceiling. 2 prototypes were ordered. Harris killed the project in May 1942, writing that the production disruption was not justified and resources were better spent improving existing aircraft. The Lancaster had already filled the role the Super Stirling was meant to occupy. No one in the Air Ministry publicly acknowledged the specification error. The de facto admission came through the decision to phase out the Stirling and adopt an aircraft unconstrained by B.12/36. Harris directed his fury not at the specification writers, but at Short Brothers management and production quality. When the Ministry of Aircraft Production pressured Shorts in 1942 to cease Stirling production and build Lancasters instead, both Oswald Short and Arthur Gouge refused. Oswald was forced to resign as chairman on the 11th of January 1943. When resistance continued, Sir Stafford Cripps nationalised Short Brothers on the 23rd of March 1943 under Defence Regulation 78. Gouge was dismissed. The personal toll was enormous. On the 10th of June 1943, a Member of Parliament asked in the House of Commons what use was being made of the experience of Arthur Gouge, who had designed the Sunderland flying boat. Sir Stafford Cripps replied that Gouge was at present unable to undertake any work as he was resting under orders from his doctor. The man who had designed some of Britain's finest aircraft, the Empire boat, the Sunderland, the Stirling, had been broken by the experience, but Gouge recovered. His reputation in the industry was such that in 1943, the same year he was sacked, he secured the position of Chief Executive and Vice Chairman of Saunders Row on the Isle of Wight. There he oversaw the Saunders Row SR.A/1, the world's first jet-powered flying boat fighter, and the enormous Princess flying boat. He served as president of the Society of British Aircraft Constructors in 1945. He was knighted in the 1948 birthday honours. He delivered the Wilbur Wright Memorial Lecture that same year, and he retired in August 1959 when Saunders Row merged with Westland Aircraft. 28 years at Shorts, 16 at Saunders Row, a career bookended by carpentry and a knighthood. Of the approximately 2,371 Stirlings built, not a single complete example survives. This makes it unique among the RAF's 3 wartime heavy bombers. 2 Lancasters remain airworthy today. A Halifax was recovered from the bottom of a Norwegian lake. Every surviving Stirling was scrapped. A handful were converted for Belgian civilian use after the war. 6 were sold to the Egyptian Air Force in 1948, all scrapped by 1951. The largest remaining fragment is the rear fuselage section of a Mark III that crashed on Mickle Fell, the highest peak in the former Yorkshire North Riding, on the 19th of October 1944, taking the lives of 6 of its 7 crew. The wreckage was recovered by RAF helicopter in September 1977 and went on display at the RAF Museum in London in March 2023. In the Netherlands, a fuselage section of another Stirling that came down near Nijmegen in September 1944 was used as a pigsty on a Dutch farm until it was transferred to a museum in 2003. A British charity called the Stirling Aircraft Project is painstakingly recreating the forward fuselage of a Mark III at former RAF Gravelly in Cambridgeshire. A slow, devoted act of remembrance for an aircraft the official record would rather forget. The Stirling is forgotten for concrete reasons. Its frontline bombing career lasted barely 2.5 years. The Lancaster flew 156,000 sorties to the Stirling's 18,000. The Lancaster story was cinematic. The dam busters, the Tirpitz, the Grand Slam. The Stirling story was one of grinding attrition at low altitude, where the headlines were written in loss percentages rather than triumphs. Harris's vocal contempt shaped the post-war narrative, and most historians followed his lead. The aircraft deserves better. It was the only British heavy bomber designed from the outset as a 4-engine monoplane. Its flush-riveted all-metal construction was advanced for the period. The gouge flap was a genuine aerodynamic innovation that outlived the aircraft it was built for. Its structural design, drawn from decades of flying boat expertise, was remarkably strong. One Stirling survived a head-on collision with a German fighter over Hamburg and returned to base. Pilots praised its extraordinary maneuverability. The thick wing that cursed it at altitude gave it the ability to outturn Junkers 88s and Messerschmitt 110s at lower levels, a feat no other heavy bomber could match. And the lessons its crews learned the hard way about four-engine tactics, pathfinding, electronic countermeasures, and airborne operations directly benefited the Halifax and Lancaster squadrons that followed. Arthur Gouge died on the 14th of October 1962, aged 72, at the Royal Isle of Wight County Hospital in Ryde. He was buried in St. Margaret's Cemetery, Rochester, beside his wife Margaret Ellen, who had passed away on the 15th of May 1940, aged just 48, at the very moment her husband was trying to turn a crippled specification into a flyable bomber. His hobbies had been photography and collecting clocks. He left behind a knighthood, a gold medal, a flap that bears his name, and an aircraft that history judged by its ceiling rather than by the brilliance of the man who built it under impossible constraints. In July 1936, a document left the Air Ministry and entered the British aviation industry. It contained one sentence about wingspan. The designer who received it fought the restriction, lost, and built the best aircraft the specification allowed. The crews who flew it paid for a decision made in a Whitehall office with their lives. No one was ever held to account.